Good day, everyone, and welcome to the 9th season of the Collegiate Penetration Testing Competition here for 2023. My name's Lucas. On with me, we also have Tom, and today is our pre-regional kickoff call. Now, the whole purpose of this call is for us to go through some things, both for competitors new and old, around the competition for this year. All of this call is out of character, but everything else beyond this will be in character with us. Now, there's a bunch of things that we have to cover today, but before we do, the first thing that we want to talk through is our sponsors. Without them, we would be unable to run this competition and provide this environment for you. From their knowledge to their funding and their volunteer hours, each of our volunteers and sponsors make the competition happen. And first and foremost, I want to personally thank IBM Security. From the beginning, since the very first year of this competition, IBM has been our premier sponsor. And we really think it shows that they have a passion for education and knowledge in the cybersecurity field. They have been a wonderful partner for all 9 years, going on over 10 years since the planning and creation of this competition. And without the support of IBM and specifically Bob Kulka, this competition would not have been something that we could have ever put on for you. Additionally, this year we have Alstom, who is our theme sponsor. Now, Alstom has provided a great deal of not just funding, but knowledge and time and hours, helping us to better understand the transportation industry as we both create the competition environment for you this year, as well as all of the associated systems around it. In addition to Alstom and IBM, we have two additional partners as of the recording of this video. The first is Maltego, and the second is Google Cloud. They both have provided excellent funding as well as time for us. And finally, we have all of our volunteer sponsors. Each of these have provided all of our volunteers time and support, in addition to, in many cases, direct access to allow us to create the competition itself and enable each of us, including Tom and myself, to put this event together for you. Now, finally, there's one other group of folks that we need to thank who put in an immense amount of effort to make all of this happen, and this is all of our hosts. So we also very specifically want to thank all of the regional hosts who will be hosting you throughout the different weekends of the competition. Without them, none of this would be available, and without them, we would not be able to have the interactions that we have with you throughout the competition. So during this video, there's a few things that we're going to cover, very similar to the things that we've covered in the past. The first is the ground rules and logistics. Second is the RFP and submission process, as well as deadlines, how we're going to interact, and our reporting requirements. With that, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. So first, I want to start by talking about our schedules and our deadlines and how this event is going to work this year for this season. A lot of this will be very similar to previous years, but we want to cover all the details for each of you so that whether you're a new team or a returning competitor, you will all have the same frame of reference to go with for what we are looking for. So I first want to talk about our RFP submission schedule. Hopefully at this point, this is review for everyone here, because the RFPs are due very, very soon. But right now, the RFP submissions are open. This is a two-part process that involves filling out a form. This is a Microsoft form that we have linked to you via email. This is where you give us our regional preference, and you'll tell us the top regions that you would like to be considered to be placed at. Additionally, there'll be a second part of this RFP response, which is a document that you're going to upload to our ticketing system. This includes your interest in participating and performing the pen test for our client, as well as the resumes for your team members. I want to emphasize that both of these parts of the RFP submission process are mandatory, and they need to be submitted in order for your team to be considered for placement. As we receive these responses, we are going to be keeping track of when they come in, and your placement is going to be based on the time that both parts are received. So if you submit the form really early in the process and wait till the last minute to submit the RFP document, your time of submission is only going to be that last minute when you put it in there. So make sure you submit both parts as soon as possible to get the best chance of being able to compete. The RFP submissions, they are going to be due this coming Thursday, September 21st at 11:59 U.S. Eastern Time at night, 11:59 p.m. That's when all of these parts need to be done. And if your team doesn't have everything put in at that point, we won't be able to consider you, or you won't have a really good chance of being able to be placed at a region. When it comes to RFP acceptances, we are getting the documents that have come in. Many teams have already submitted a complete RFP. We are going to be reviewing these, and we will communicate placements to the teams on September 24th. That is this coming Sunday. Once you get a response from our team, if it's saying, hey, you're going to be going to the central region, you need to come back to us within 2 days, 2 business days, 48 hours, and tell us, yes, we accept this spot and we are going to go to this region. If we don't hear from you in that period of time, your spot will be offered to a team on the wait list. Some of the regions are close to being full, or if not full already, and some of the teams that might not have a chance to compete otherwise might be given a spot based on teams not responding. So once you get a communication from us, right away, be able to fill that back out and return to us with the acceptance of that spot. A couple pieces of information you'll need when you do that. You will be finalizing your team roster. This is going to be the students that are going to come to the region in order to compete. Make sure you have your team's contact information ready so that you can put this in. This is going to include an email, a Discord handle, and phone numbers, as well as t-shirt sizes. And we'll be putting that into our scoring portal. Now, we're going to make every effort possible to accommodate our first or second regional choice that you have, but we recognize that we want to give everyone an opportunity to compete as best as possible. So we do not want anyone to make any non-refundable travel arrangements until your region is confirmed. I also want to call out that there is a recent addition of a region that we've had where the Western Regional now also has a Southern California or SoCal region that has been added. That region is something that we're going to be dividing some of the teams that would traditionally be going to the Western region into a region that is maybe more local to them. So please just don't make any travel arrangements until your region is confirmed this coming Sunday. And at that point, once you accept your spot, you'll be going to that region. I'm going to pass it back over to Lucas to talk about what to expect during the event.
So during the competition, there's a couple of things that you're going to need to know. The regional events may start Friday night. They may start Saturday morning. Ultimately, this is up to each of the regional hosts and their sponsors and the needs that they may have. So you will receive a detailed schedule from your individual regional host after you are confirmed into the region. The competition itself will begin Saturday morning, and you'll have approximately 8 hours of time in the competition environment. Now, during that time, you're going to be performing a penetration test of our client and our environment for this year. After that, you will then have time to put together a penetration testing report for that client. And those reports will be due Sunday morning. We will then take all of those reports, and our grading team and volunteers will be going through looking at the technical components as well as the soft skills-based components of each of those reports, as well as the interactions that we've had with you during the competition to come up with final scoring and rankings. The awards ceremony will then take place on Sunday afternoon. Again, look to your regional host as we will be providing them with rankings so that they can provide you with that information. Now, during the event, you are going to be communicating with both our volunteers as well as hosts and potentially other sponsors. Any interaction that you have with our volunteers, anything that you have with our client will be in character, and those communications will happen. So you may receive emails, You may receive someone coming to your space face to face, or you may receive other forms of communication, although it will only be through those approved means, which will be either email, through our ticketing system, face-to-face interaction with your team, or potentially, if we're not able to get a hold of you through those three, through the phone number and a cell phone or mobile phone call of your captain. Now, throughout, you need to make sure that you are communicating as if you are communicating with a client. But please pay attention to your competition email, because all of that will happen through the email we give you, not your personal ones. If you need to get in touch with us, please submit a ticket. We will have URLs provided for you both later in this presentation, as well as in all of your welcome information as you come into the region. If you need anything, you can always submit a ticket to us, and we will get back to you during the competition. Now, finally, it's just a general reminder, is our goal here is to prepare you as much as we can for the real world. So while you in school have a lot of opportunities to do labs and technical information, technical learning, and configurations of systems, the main reason that we put this event together is really twofold. The first is to give you a space to be a consultant, to work with a client, to conduct a pen test of a fictitious and simulated environment, and to bring all of those skills together from a consulting perspective to prepare you for that. But more importantly, it also gives you an opportunity to interact, not just with your client, but with other competitors, with sponsors, with everyone else that's there, from our volunteer team to the faculty and hosts. And so ultimately, take that opportunity, because you're not going to get a space to interact with as broad as group of people as almost anywhere else. And do remember that while not everyone can win, we all can learn.
I want to jump in and offer a couple of scoping reminders as well. There are a couple things that we have in the environment that are really important for us to be able to make the system exist and to monitor the competition as it happens. So we want to call out a couple components that are explicitly out of scope, because attacking these sorts of components could result in jeopardizing the integrity of the entire competition environment, not just for your team, but all the other teams that will be competing at the same time. So explicitly out of scope will include things in the infrastructure that are used for deployment. CPTC infrastructure deployment tools such as the LaForge agent. And that's something that we won't want you interfering with, because that's used for making sure the systems operate as designed during the event. We also have monitoring infrastructure, including a Splunk Universal Forwarder on all the systems. That is something else that we don't want you to make any changes or modifications to. Additionally, RIT's environment is used for the hosting, and your regional host will have infrastructure that's used in order to access the competition infrastructure. None of that will be in scope as well, because we need to make sure that your university that you're at for competition is functional, as well as RIT's infrastructure is available for everyone who's competing. If at any point you're not sure about what is in scope, or if something is in scope or not in scope, just ask for clarification. During the event, this can be done by submitting a ticket through our ticketing system, and we'll get back to you with approval or denial to proceed. And also keep in mind the CPTC rules listed at the link there below. Those detail even more about what is considered in scope and out of scope, as well as all the other rules for the competition. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Lucas, to discuss connectivity.
Thank you, Tom. So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to connect to the environment itself. So first, as far as the overall scope, there will be pre-event activities. These will be timed for the weekend that you are competing. So you will receive some emails from us notifying you of some planning activities and other things that are going to be coming up. There will be a scored component for this that will be part of your regional event. These will be delayed so that each group will get them at the same time before each regional. Additionally, you're going to be given a set of VDI hosts. Each team will have 6 Kali Linux boxes and 6 Microsoft Windows boxes. These are not in scope, and they are part of what we give to you to perform the test. Additionally, social engineering will be allowed, but only as we define it. So please be careful, as you should not attempt to social engineer any of our volunteers, hosts, or sponsors on either their personal accounts or CPTC accounts. We will be in touch and talk about that briefly. So as I mentioned, social engineering is coming back again this year. You may not do any of this outside of the explicitly stated areas and scope that we give you as part of this. Now, you're going to be given some information ahead of time around that so that you can prepare, but any attacks or attempts to social engineer any of our sponsors, our volunteers, or anyone involved in the competition outside of what we explicitly state will be considered a rules violation and is not something that you should do. Beyond that, we actually think we're going to have some fun with some social engineering this year. We're going to do some things with it that we haven't been able to do in the past. And we, I think, are as excited as you are for this itself. Now, the environment itself is not going to be run by the regional hosts. This is something that is run centrally with their support at their region. So, very similar to prior years, you are going to connect into this environment via a WireGuard VPN. That will get you access to your virtual desktop infrastructure network. We have some information on our support portal that you can use to get additional technical information around this. Now, occasionally, there are technical limitations that we have with our regional hosts where we have to make changes to this. And if so, we will make sure that both the regional host as well as our volunteer representative at that region will clearly communicate to you any specific issues that may change for this. For each of you, we will also be providing a Microsoft account for each team. This will give you access to an email inbox for use during the competition and during that competition weekend, as well as a drive that you can use as part of OneDrive to transfer and share information amongst your team. Now, please note, this is a consulting engagement. So you need to protect your client's information just as you would your own. So as you upload things to the OneDrive, that will be included in the NDA that you have, and that will be considered safe. But anything beyond that would not. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on what is in scope and what is not. But the OneDrive we provide is considered a secure space to store information. A little bit different than in the past where we provided a Dropbox for you. This year, we have a new Microsoft process that we're going to be using thanks to their sponsorship for the competition as a whole and not just this individual event. We are going to be using a form that will allow you to submit your report to us into a safe space where we can then provide it to our volunteers that will be performing the scoring and grading. We will have some very clear links for you for that for during the competition. Now, as I mentioned, your VDI environment does have Windows and Unix, and you will have one of those for each team member. So you will have 6 Unix and 6 Windows devices for 12 total. Each of those, again, you're going to be connecting via WireGuard to get access to that network. And then you will remote desktop into your Windows systems. And then from there, if you choose to SSH or set up VNC or do other things, that's all perfectly fine. Those are yours to configure as you would like. But most importantly, all of your work must be performed within that VDI environment. You may not pull anything out of it. So if, for example, we get the question a lot, can I use the GPU on my local system? The answer is no. That is pulling that out of the VDI, but the truth is you don't need it. We design this environment and the credentials within so that you will either be able to crack it on the VDI system or you will be completely unable to do so during the competition. There's nothing really that sits in the center and middle ground there. So you don't need those, but you also, just from the perspective of the rules, cannot use them. Now, your connection information will be viewable in the scoring portal. In the coming weeks, as we finalize each of your regions, we will be loading that information into the scoring portal. You will get a welcome email from that before the competition begins. Captains, you will need to know your credentials the day of the competition, as you are going to need to log into this to get your VPN profiles as well as the credentials to log in to each of your Kali and Windows boxes. So make sure that you have the ability to connect to this. The very last thing that I want to cover here is to talk around tools. So a couple of years ago, we allowed you all to start developing and creating your own tools for the competition. But the rule here is that you must stage all of your tools inside a GitHub repo that we have listed. These are for all of the different teams, and these allow us to make sure that these fit within the rules and appropriateness for the competition. If this is something that you would like to do, you may submit a support ticket and we will get a repository created for your team and get the captain access to push to that repository. These are public, so keep that in mind, but please note that any non-public repositories, anything that's not been in existence for some time that other people may have access to, are prohibited. So this is going to include repositories that you create and leave public but obscure for information for the competition, all the way down to private repositories that have tools that you may or may not try and use. Now, additionally, and we're probably going to talk about this a little bit later, but it bears mentioning now, you cannot use commercial tools during the competition. Our whole goal here is to create an even environment for everyone. And while some schools may have sponsors or budget to license private tools, we do not allow the use of those during the competition itself. There may be cases where we have a sponsor licenses a tool for everyone, and in that case, we will clearly communicate that and allow you all to use those. Otherwise, you should not use them, and that includes repositories that have been created, even public, specifically for this competition, that are outside of this staging repository that we've listed here.
Now, I'm sure some of you may be thinking, well, Lucas just mentioned we can't use things on GitHub or commercial tools. How is anyone going to know? Well, I'm glad you asked. So as part of our emphasis on competition integrity, we do have substantial monitoring within the environment to keep track of who accesses the environment, where they access the environment from, and what is done during the competition. This includes things like trying to grant access to someone who's not a team member that's at the competition, or potentially using tools that are outside the rules of the scope, or the rules of the competition. And if there is anonymous action or access that is identified during the event, our monitoring team will reach out to you. So if you think you do something that potentially might be considered outside of the rules, you accidentally go to a GitHub link that you think might be something that isn't allowed, or you make a typo with an nmap command and accidentally scan something outside of the scope, let us know those sorts of things. Report those issues. And what I will say is that we accept the fact that there are sometimes times where your team might make an honest mistake. Someone will type, 193 instead of a 192, for example, when they're typing an IP address in. Those things happen. That's something both Lucas and I, we have done things that have been mistakes when we work professionally. Customer is going to be more accepting of that when you come to them and say, hey, I screwed up, I made a mistake, this is exactly what happened, and when it happened, that's fine. We understand that. If we discover something and we have to come to you and say, why are we getting a report from someone that this is happening? That's going to be much more of a serious concern. Additionally, we understand that you are all excited to talk about what you're doing. And we really appreciate when teams share that information and help the competition grow organically because of all the information that they share with others. We just ask that you don't share specific information about the event until after the finals awards ceremony in January 2024. Just to kind of clarify the scope for this, there is no problem with posting information about, I'm excited to compete at this region this Sunday, or have a picture of your team at the event, or the team that places first place, have a picture of your team with your award. Nothing wrong with that. But details such as, oh, we found this cool vulnerability on these systems, that's not something that we want to share until after the event is over, because there's going to be other regions that are not happening all at the same time, and you would be giving a later region an unfair advantage, as well as potentially helping your competitors at finals if you happen to make it there. So that's important for us to emphasize. Now, during the competition, if you do need help from us, there's a couple ways to get help, but the primary way that we're going to do this is going to be through the ticketing system. The reason that we're emphasizing this is because it allows our team to effectively triage communications with all the teams and get back to everyone in a timely manner. So the same ticketing system process that we're using for submitting the RFP and asking questions before the event, that's going to be what you're going to be using during the competition. The biggest difference will be during the competition, you're going to be using the email address that we provide you. So you will sign up for an account in the ticketing system with that email, and you will use that when submitting a ticket. And as part of the ticketing system form, we'll ask you your team number and your region as you're submitting any ticket during the event, so we can properly have your address or your concerns addressed by the correct team. Additionally, during the event, we will have emergency numbers available. This will be sent to the teams prior to your event, and it may vary by region, just so that we can have someone local to the event be able to handle any concerns that come up. I want to emphasize this is going to be out of character and for emergencies only. So, an example of emergency, someone on your team became sick or ill, and you need to get a hold of someone at the region to make sure that they get the correct medical attention. That would be something where it would be perfectly fine and expected to use this number. A non-emergency would be, I ran the wrong Nmap command and I think something broke in the environment. That's something that you would handle through the ticketing system in character. And speaking of in character, we want to speak a little bit about that, because role-playing and in-character interaction is really something that makes CPTC special. So whenever you are at the competition, you are in character and you're working as a consultant. And the CPTC volunteers, myself, Lucas, and the entire team that you're going to see at each of these events, they are employees of the company that you're working for. The RAKMS, or Robert A. Kalka Metropolitan Skyport. They are clients. You treat them like a client, and whenever you're working with them, you want to be professional. When you interact with employees, volunteers, the staff for this company, they are all going to be something that is part of your score. So when someone walks into your room and is talking to you, that is something that is part of the overall competition score. Remember, when you're working with us and when you're participating in CPTC, you are doing a professional consulting engagement and being a professional pen tester. You're not competing. If you mention something about competition, your customer is going to be really confused because there's no competition. What your competitors, might be wanting to also get the pen test business, but as far as you're aware, that's the only pen test that's going on. Now, there are times that us as organizers may see something where we want to help share some information, share some educational experience that we have as professionals. If that happens during the event, we may step out of character, but we will tell you if this happens. And we will often even physically move to a separate spot and say, this is something we are telling you out of character, just so you can see that separation happens. But we want you to keep in mind, you should always assume that all conversations are in character. And if things are going to be taken out of character, that is something that only we can do as CPTC organizers. You as competitors cannot decide to step out of character. And if that is something that is deemed to be necessary, it'll be always something coming from us and never from you. So with that said, Lucas, take it away about the company.
So I think everyone is very aware that this year we are going to be an airport. We are the Robert A. Kalka Memorial Skyport. Now, before everyone starts going out and doing a ton of OSINT, I will tell you that this is named in honor of the father of Bob Kalka, who has been one of the sponsors and a partner and a friend that has made this competition possible since the very beginning. Bill Stackpool, who originally put this event together, Bob was the first person he called. And so as such, Bob has been a partner to us through this entire time. And when we were putting together the idea of an airport, we approached him about naming it after him. And he asked us if instead we would name it after his father. So there's your OSINT. There is nothing else you need to know about this other than the name came as a way for us to personally thank Bob and everything that he has done in honor of his father for this year and for all of the 9 years of CPTC. The airport itself has a lot of flights every day, provides convenient air travel to all of the major hotspots, not just in the United States, but around the world. Much like where the Simpsons live, it is located in Springfield. And the mission of the airport is to pioneer and create an era of seamless, sustainable, and personalized aviation, where innovation and human-centric design converge to create unparalleled individual journeys for every traveler. We have the latest in technology, including people movers, airplanes, and a state-of-the-art security system. It should also be noted that our airplanes both take off and land. It's very exciting. Now, as we move through this, please remember, and again, this is still out of character, that you have signed a non-disclosure agreement for the CPTC season. So protect the client's data as you would professionally. Clearly, the NDA is a legal document, but we all know that it is not a legally binding document, given that this is a competition. But as someone who's been a professional consultant for almost 20 years at this point, I will tell you that we sign a non-disclosure agreement or something similar with every single one of our clients. So we feel the whole point here is to increase a little realism, but also to ensure fairness. So protect the client's data as you would protect your own professionally. This means don't place it in places that could increase their risk, such as public analysis tools, open API or similar cloud and AI cloud environments, or large language models. Systems, even ones that you may control outside of their network. All of these, if I were to do these professionally as part of the professional services firm that I work for, could cause an issue at my clients. So these are things that we do not do, and that we always work with them to help them protect their systems and their information, just as we would our own. Now, with that, as Tom mentioned earlier, we ask you not to present anything that could give other competitors help during the competition. We have multiple weekends of regionals. And if you're competing in an early one, you don't want to provide help to those that are competing later by publicly posting information about it. Remember that we do have the at-large teams that can come from anywhere that will go to finals in addition to the first place winner from each of the regionals. Those will be announced after the last region. There will be more information to come, but you don't want to affect that as you could be part of that group. Now, after the final awards ceremonies in the early parts of January of next year, this is no longer in effect. And we look forward to you posting everything from screenshots to technical information to anything that you would like about the competition. And while this is not something that you could do professionally, right? I cannot post information about our clients. We welcome it because, as we said earlier, our goal here is to educate. And it's not just us educating you, it's you educating us and each other. And so we really want to encourage you to post these things after the finals. And if you do, let us know. We will make sure to echo them on all of our social media as well.
Now, finally, one last part, which is a big part for the regional events, but the reporting requirements. As you know, the big main deliverable of doing a pen test is the report that you give to your clients. And likewise, the big part of the competition that we use primarily for scoring at regionals is the report that you deliver to us. So your expectation going into the competition, you're going to be spending 8 hours doing your pen tests, spending that evening writing a pen test report, sending that pen test report to us, and we will do scoring and review of that as part of the final rankings. So by competing and participating in CPTC, it is the expectation that every team submits a report. Now, all of these reports need to be branded with the client's information and branding. So we want to keep things anonymous. You will reference who you are by your team number and your region. So for example, teams in the Great Lakes region will just be Great Lakes 1 through however many teams there are. And that'll be the same way for the other regions as well. We don't want any mentions of your firm or institution name or any other information that could tie the report to your school. And that's for fairness and future report distribution. We don't want our team of graders to have any idea what university you come from when they're scoring the reports so that they can be as objective and non-biased as possible. We are going to have a form that we have for submitting the reports, and we're going to ask again that you submit 2 versions. One will be a PDF, and that'll be what we use for scoring in our scoring system. That'll be the equivalent of the pen test report that you would send to your customer after your pen test is finished. Additionally, you will ask that you send a modifiable document, such as the source Word, Office document, or whatever other tool that you use to create the report. That's going to be something that we will use to make our jobs a little bit easier to edit the report and make it available for public release. Otherwise, other than file format, those documents should be the same. I will also emphasize the link on the bottom to our GitHub. That has a lot of public examples of reports for the last several years, and you can use that as a basis for what you might see as a good report or some reports that have done well in the past. And with that said, I think we just wrap up to our final thoughts. And Lucas, do you have anything you'd like to throw to our teams just in the last couple of minutes here?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, looking at the years of this, I think the teams that have been most successful are the ones that really do treat it like a consulting engagement. So this is interacting with our volunteers as if they are in character, but also then looking at the balance of skills, not just the technical ones, but also the interactions and thinking about the risk of the client. We had a real airport having pen tested some things like this personally and professionally. You have to be incredibly careful about what you're putting up and what you're taking down. And that could cause serious economic and financial issues for the airport, but could also potentially cause a loss of life. And that's something that we cannot do. So while this is a fictitious environment, I think, really want to encourage everyone, and I've done this the last several years, of think of yourselves as consultants, because generally those are the teams that succeed.
And what I would add in is there are a lot of things that we ask for throughout this event. There are, a process that we have for registration. We have injects or tasks that we'll ask you to do during the event or even before the event. And each of those things that we ask for, we're doing for specific reasons. And keep in mind as you're going through this process that we have a lot of these things that we're trying to take care of and make sure that we account for everything that a team has. So do everything you can to make your customer's life easier in this case, just because you're not the only single piece of information or team that we're working with. And when you have 40, 50, 60, 100 teams that you're trying to coordinate things with, anything that you can do that to make the job easier for the client is something that helps a lot. Am I a little selfish there with that? Yes, but it is something that we all can help to make the process smoother for everyone. So I appreciate everyone who has done that up to this point, and we hope that you continue doing that. And with that, that wraps up our call. And we want to encourage you to enjoy this year. This is the 9th year that we've been doing it, Lucas and me together. And we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't fun. And we want everyone to have fun while doing this as well. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in just a couple short weeks.